Next, we backtrack and take a closer look at Jokowi's journey. And finally, 100 Days of Doraemon, we give you the scoop of this colorful and catchy exhibition. Hello and selamat berjumpa lagi. Welcome to Today's Indonesia. From Jakarta, I am Luisa Kusnandar. Authorities said on Tuesday several bodies have been found near Pangkalan Bun, South Kalimantan, the area the missing plane was last seen at. The corpses were found 10 kilometers from the spot where the plane last communicated with air traffic control. They did not have life jackets on, and the National Search and Rescue Agency said the corpses were brought aboard an Indonesian Navy ship. This after authorities found red and white colored debris in the sea, which they said indicated the AirAsia plane. The airline went missing 42 minutes after taking off for a flight from Surabaya to Singapore on Sunday. It's been an eventful year for Joko Widodo, furniture maker turned 7th president of Indonesia. Jokowi, as he is commonly known, took the country by storm. After beating military man and opposition candidate Prabowo Subianto in the general elections, Jokowi and his new cabinet moved to implement policies considered hawkish by critics. Supporters, on the other hand, cheered when the pair pushed forward with a fuel subsidy cut, with what many are calling a nationalistic approach. Jokowi has outlined plans to boost domestic production, spur growth, and improve the country's fiscal balance to levels not seen in decades, and of course, stamp out corruption. Now we get perspective from our viewpoint analyst. Wimar Witular is here. He's a former presidential spokesman, now running his own communications firm. Wimar, it's good to see you back on set.
It's good to see you, Luisa.
Well, Wimar, Jokowi has more of a nationalistic approach for in terms of economy for the future in Indonesia. Do you think that the new government reforms will be restrictive, too restrictive?
You must remember he has only been in office less than 3 months, so it's really hard to judge the thrust of his policies. But as far as concrete results are concerned, it's really fantastic and unprecedented. No president I remember in our history has done so much in so little time. At least 4 things I remember. One, he went to the forest of Rio and immediately revamped the whole policy on the management of the peat forest to avoid further forest fires. And then he gave what do you call it, grasi in Indonesian? Anyway, he released from detention a woman who had been accused of being communist, etc., but actually is just an activist. So he has on the side of human rights. Eva Banda is her name. And then he has combated illegal fishing to a degree that some people are complaining that it's too harsh and too fast. I don't think so, but it's effective and everybody is jumping. And then, of course, the Lapindo mud flow.
Yes.
In 8 years, SBY has just making gestures, but Jokowi, in just this short period, has immediately come to a very practical solution.
He finally have done, he definitely have done a lot of actions for this past few months and have positive responses. But what do you think would be the major homework for Jokowi next year then?
Well, first is to consolidate all those instant victories into a long-term policy and further institutionalize his government. Some of the parts of the government have not been formally institutionalized yet, like the president's office, like the climate change mechanism, like many other things. In fact, he's disbanded some of the institutions. But I think he should give permanence to these efforts by sharing the load with a lot of other people. Now creative people, imaginative people are supporting him. Soon we must have ordinary people also.
Well, he has a lot of support.
He does.
A big support so far.
He does.
Now, Jokowi's medium-term economic agenda is certainly pretty ambitious. And how successful do you think the government will be in achieving it? We're talking about 7% economic growth next year, and
it's ambitious,
yes,
unless you notice that one part of his plan is to eradicate corruption. Without corruption, the 7% is feasible. We were not able to engage policies which could increase it beyond 6% because so many percent is allocated for corruption.
Yes.
Now there's no allocation for corruption. It's easy to manage it efficiently.
Well, About corruption, though, do you think Jokowi will succeed in battling corruption?
He will succeed in taking up more cases than his predecessors. It will never go away, of course, but he will get rid of the more conspicuous cases and punish the corruptors harshly.
Okay, we're still talking about next year here. How much of his economic agenda do you think, do you see materializing in 2015, you think?
Well, since his appearance is ambitious, but his plans are not fully announced, I think those plans can be adjusted as he goes along. There's no possibility yet now of things totally falling apart. He has not established targets, if you notice. So he's on a safe course.
He's on a safe course?
He's on a safe course.
Okay,
he will not crash.
Do you think that his opposition is expecting to see him fail?
They are hoping, but their hope is receding fast every day. That's why his opposition have gradually moved to the side and left the true believers out in the mud, I mean out in the cold. Yeah, the opposition is getting weaker and more fragmented.
Well, there's one more thing that Indonesians are a bit worried and reluctant about, which is about the new fuel prices. Do you think the new fuel prices will be implemented anytime soon?
Well, they have to. It's past the point of no return. And it's also tied into the global developments so that nobody knows exactly where the parameters are for new oil prices. You just stick to a numerical point and hope that the global forces will align in favor of those decisions.
Do you think the transition will be as smooth as what has happened this year?
Transition from what to what?
To the new fuel prices?
Oh yeah, the worst I think has been past. People now accept that the prices we had were unrealistic, that you have to bite the bullet, so to speak, and that so far it's been okay. Of course, the social programs have to be accelerated in their delivery to the people.
Okay, so we are expecting for good things to come in 2015.
We are, yes.
Hopefully. Okay, Wimar Witular, thank you so much for coming and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Luisa.
Now to our first look at the weather. I'm still looking at a gloomy picture here in the capital.
This is the Indonesia Channel.
Coming up on today's Indonesia, divers recover a black box flight recorder from AirAsia QZ8501. Bogor remains open for visitors after a tree collapses. And we look at a touching journey of Papua children seeking to get the best education. Hello and welcome to today's Indonesia. I am Luisa Kusnandar. Search divers have found one of two black box recorders of the AirAsia plane that crashed into the Java Sea late last month.
Pukul 7.11, ya, 7.11 menit, berhasil diangkat ya, bagian dari black box yang disebut dengan flight data recorder. Black box itu ada dua bagian, ya. Satu adalah flight data recorder dan yang satunya adalah cockpit voice recorder.
Authorities say they have recovered and evacuated the black box to a ship, which will be transferred to Jakarta for examination by the National Transportation Safety Committee. It could take up to 2 weeks to download data from the recovered device. Meanwhile, divers have also discovered the location of the second black box, the cockpit voice recorder, about 60 feet from where the first device was found, and are currently working to retrieve it. So far, a total of 48 bodies have been recovered and 32 have been identified. On Monday, authorities succeeded in identifying 2 South Korean passengers. AirAsia flight QZ8501 was carrying 162 people, including 7 foreigners. The government have found 61 more flight permit violations in the wake of the AirAsia incident. 5 airlines with the most license violations include Garuda Indonesia, Lion Air, Wings Air, Transnusa, and also Susi Air. They violated permits flying in and out of big airports in Tangerang, Banten, Bali, and Surabaya, East Java. Authorities have urged these airlines to propose new flying permits. The airlines will be penalized if found guilty of violating their permits. AirAsia's crashed plane did not have a permit to fly that Sunday for the Surabaya-Singapore route. We get perspective now from our viewpoint analyst. Wimar Witular is here. He's a former presidential spokesman and now running his own communications company. Wimar, after AirAsia, it turns out that some airlines doesn't even have the permit to fly. Do you think this has been happening for some time now?
Well, obviously, it's not just something that happened that week. And from the testimony that we have heard from various officials, they confirm that. But there is ambivalence on the fact whether it was a normal violation, if you can call it normal, or whether it is negligence. So the jury is still out.
Who do you think is actually to blame here? Is this the government who hasn't been paying enough attention to all
I think
these
it's
airlines?
misunderstanding as to the interpretation of the regulations by the government vis-a-vis the interpretation of the airlines, because each seem to have their own viewpoint. Since I am a neutral bystander, I cannot give a verdict unless the process has revealed everything.
Now, the transportation ministers are working on investigating these permit violations. What else do you think they can do?
I think they can maybe do an audit of the safety inspection steps before each flight and compare it to those that AirAsia has to endure in other countries. I cannot believe that we allow the flights to be flown at substandards. So if they have the same standards, it should be made known so that Indonesia as a country does not get branded as a negligent country. But if it's a negligent, then they should, of course, remedy it.
So are you saying that it's actually the Indonesian management that is in the wrong?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's the communications that is not clear. Communications internally between the agencies, and also the public relations, the PR outside to present the picture as it is without any bias towards either party. I don't know at this moment if the Indonesian government is to blame.
Well, the government has even planned to ban low-cost airlines from offering cheap tickets for safety reasons. Do you think this is necessary?
I am quite puzzled by that, because we have this tragedy, which is awful, which is terrible, and we have the low-cost fares, which is another issue. I'm not sure whether they are related. The government's thesis is that since the fares are so low, so they don't take care in the safety of the flights. But I'm not sure that is correct, because it's not a price-dependent function.
You don't think so?
No, I think the technical management of each airline has their own professional pride in safety, and it's not dictated by the economics of the airline.
But it must have got some effect to it, right? I mean, price should have mattered to the quality.
Well, we have to see what is revealed in this AirAsia's crash. Did it really fly because the tickets are cheap? That's too simplistic. I mean, we have seen very expensive flights fall down. You know, the famous KLM and Pan Am, the Concorde, and very, very upscale aircraft accidents. So you cannot really just instinctively blame the price for it.
So you're saying this strategy won't actually make any impact?
It's a hasty strategy. Maybe it's a good reaction to show concern, but it should not be a long-term strategy unless it's coupled with a long-term analysis.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what do you think would be the best solution in this case for the better of our airlines and also safety?
We must not lose sight that low-cost airfares are very good in increasing the mobility of Indonesians, that anyone can fly principle. So we should not do away with that first, but we should apply an audit maybe from the ground up on all flights, maybe even a moratorium, and then allow flights which meet the standard to fly again, but not as a matter of precondition, pin it on the prices.
Okay, last question here. People have already been complaining. Do you think this will threaten our airline industry if they do ask all the airlines to increase their price for safety reasons?
It will, because some of the airlines maybe will not be viable if their price policy is tampered with, and hence it will decrease the frequency of the flights. And if we have open skies policy this year or next year in the ASEAN policy, then we will suffer from the fact that we cannot meet the competition of the foreign airlines.
Exactly, exactly. Wimar Witular, thank you so much for coming and sharing
Lisa.
your thoughts with us. A terrorist suspect was killed on Saturday by counter-terrorism officers in North Luwu, South Sulawesi. Police.
This is the Indonesia Channel.
Coming up on today's Indonesia, how will death penalty implementation affect Indonesia's diplomatic ties with other nations? More bodies found from AirAsia fuselage as search team fight with severe weather. And the first female minister from Papua. We have her inspiring journey in the education sector. Welcome to today's Indonesia from Jakarta. I am Luisa Kusnandar. Two more bodies from the crash AirAsia plane arrived in Pangkalan Bun, Central Kalimantan on Monday, bringing to a total of 53 recovered bodies. Along with the bodies, the search team have also recovered a passenger seat to which the bodies were struck on to when they were found. Meanwhile, divers are still struggling to access and lift the fuselage due to severe weather. It is believed that the wreckage found is part of the cockpit and the engine. Authorities have also downloaded data from both black boxes found last week, which will be key to learning the cause of the tragedy. The Netherlands and Brazil have recalled their ambassadors in Indonesia following the executions of their citizens for drug dealings. Brazil says the execution has affected the diplomatic relations between the two countries, while the Netherlands also condemned Indonesia's decision to conduct death penalty. Brazilian Marco Archer and Dutch Ang Kim Soy were executed on Sunday midnight, along with 4 other prisoners. From 6 people in total, 5 were foreigners and 1 was Indonesian.
Sekali lagi adalah wujud daripada sikap tegas pemerintah Indonesia bahwa kita tidak pernah akan ada kompromi dengan para pelaku jaringan sindikat pengedar dan bandar kejahatan narkotika ini.
President Joko Widodo first rejected clemency requests in December and refused last-minute appeals. Widodo said he would show no mercy toward drug criminals. 66 drug convicts remain on that road. 39 of them are foreigners. We get perspective now from our Viewpoint analyst. Wimar Witular is here. He's a former presidential spokesman, now running his own communications company. Wimar, the Netherlands and also Brazil have recalled their ambassadors. Do you think they have gone too far?
It's normal diplomatic practice if you are in principle opposed to an action taken by another country, then the strongest form of protest is recalling your ambassador. Of course, that's not an action that lasts forever. In a few months or a few weeks, they will come back, but they will have made their points and satisfied their domestic constituents that they are against the death penalty.
You know, from the beginning, international leaders have been against Indonesia's decision to actually have death penalty. Did President Widodo actually take the right step, in your opinion?
I think so, because it is the decision of the courts, and unless he wants to go against the court, which needs a lot of preparation, he would have to follow the constitutional requirement that the president follow the law. And besides, the case has been put on trial years ago, and it only awaits the execution. He could order a stay of execution, but that would open up a whole issue. We are talking here about statesmanship, about public dialogue. We are not talking about personal opinions. If he were really passionately against the death penalty, he could make the effort to stall it. But I guess he has other priorities on his mind. And in Indonesia, there's no consensus about the death penalty. A lot of people like it. In fact, a lot of people demand that death penalty be put into effect in the case of corruption, for instance.
Yes, but do you think this will actually create a deterrent effect in the future towards all the other countries and other criminals as well?
That it will take a deterrent effect on criminals, I think yes. I mean, wouldn't you be scared to be put to death just for smuggling some drugs? So that's effective, whether it's overkill or not. I'm personally against the death penalty because it's just against human rights. Only God has the right to take someone's life, and nobody is God here.
Well, Australia has also appealed to Jokowi to spare actually 2 Australians, part of the Bali 9, and who are also on the death row. So do you think this will again affect the relationship between Australia and Indonesia?
It will, but it's not a new issue. This kind of issue has always been a stumbling block between Australia and Indonesia. Always the case of some Australian being put to death, and Australia protests, but it's a never-ending dialogue. Some resolution would have to come about if we have the time, the attention for a judicial review on the death penalty, because it is a key feature of the criminal law.
Well, President Widodo said that the implementation of this death penalty is an emergency situation. It's an emergency step to fight the drug traffickers. Is the situation really that bad in Indonesia currently?
I'm not an expert, but at this moment, if enough well-meaning people say so, I would tend to go along with them. But if I were in a position of responsibility, I would say, hey, isn't there any other way you could get rid of this problem?
Exactly, like that's what some critics are saying, that maybe this might not be that effective.
I know, but every piece of policy has critics, so it's up to those who make the decisions which to choose, and these are the courts, the legislature, and the press. So I'm just one person. I would vote to abolish the death penalty, but if it still goes on, that's the will of the people.
So you don't think that there's actually any other way to prevent drug trafficking?
I think there are many other ways, but I don't think I'm strong enough to introduce those other ways.
Okay. Well, in this case, though, are you saying that President Joko Widodo has done the right thing instead of compromising with all these other countries?
compromising.
Compromising instead of like not actually agreeing to
Oh, he did
giving
not compromise.
clemency.
In fact, he stood firm.
Yes, yes.
Oh, yes, I think he did the right thing. Because if he wants to change his stance on the death penalty, it should be done internally first, and not as a point of concession to foreign governments.
Okay, Wimar Witular, thank you so much for coming and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us today. Manpower Ministry will make the ability to speak a foreign language required.